Hello and welcome to askLRR. Graham here.
Cameron here.
And Ian on your left?
Well, my left.
Is this in stereo?
It's your...
Now we have to flip the thing.
It's your right
backwards.
if you are facing the podcast.
Podcast
or the
left.
video. Yes,
Good.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exit podcast left.
Welcome everybody to askLRR. This is the first instance of the recurrence, the relaunch of askLRR as part of the YouTube memberships. If you are unaware and didn't see that video on it, we have activated the memberships button on YouTube as a sort of a third channel, a third column of potential way that you could directly support us with your money.
A jungle to the top and bottom of Twitch and Patreon,
Yes,
as it were.
exactly. A mid lane. Yes, it's perfect. Because YouTube, obliges you to create some content for it, we have done askLRR. But because we don't like to gate our content, anybody, such as yourself, probably statistically are watching this. But if you are a member, you can ask the questions. That's how the questions for today came up. We put up a members-only community post in the community tab, which we are starting to use more on YouTube. And the three of us for this episode, as it said in the tab, that's like, these are the three people that will be on this month's episode. Do you have any questions? We picked a selection of them because, of course, there was a lot, and we can't get to them all, but hopefully we'll get to at least the ones that we've set aside. And that's what this is going to be. So it's just
a rotating chairs of hosts.
Yeah,
as well.
it'll be different people every time. I mean, there could very easily be overlap, and there likely will be, but it won't always be myself, Ian, and Cameron. It'll be probably different people next month. So if you are a YouTube member, thank you, and keep an eye out on the community tab for your chance to ask some questions for next month. And if you are not, that is totally cool. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Let's get started. Paul, what's the first one we got? What has been, this is a me question. What's been the biggest delay in RoadQuest development? From Daybreak King. So I went into this a little bit in the last YouTube update, the YouTube update for July. And it's basically that before we started RoadQuest, you may be surprised to learn that we had a big meeting before we started, sort of laying out how we would structure the post-production and sort of who would be editing what sections and how we would lay all of this out. And so we had a plan, and the delay was that plan didn't work. We were not able to execute that plan as intended because, people had other projects that they had to do. I had just a lot of scheduling headache related to my personal life because our wonderful nanny got a much better job, and so our childcare was in flux for a while, which was a huge personal stressor. And Kathleen was doing By Law and Order, which was awesome, and but took a lot of time. And the people that originally were going to be doing specific roles of the thing, there was a whole sort of, we'll do these steps with these people and these steps with these people, and then it will move on like this. And that didn't happen. So that's been the delay in that, or that's what has been the delay, because it's just hours and days of footage. But it's getting real close now. It's funny. I read an article with an interview with two people who are crew and specifically editors on the Grand Tour. Which was neat because they were talking about sort of cameras they use and everything, and they asked specifically about doing the editing because it's the cameras in the cars are on all the time and they're doing all this recording. What's the process for getting through all that footage? And this is from the professionals. These are the people who are doing this for Amazon. They were like, there's no trick. You just watch it all.
Throw people at us.
You just watch. You sit there and you watch all the footage. Yeah, and I was like, that makes me feel better. It's just
Right.
okay, good, because that's all we can do So I'm glad that is just the way to do it.
There's
so.
no better way.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Although maybe Amazon is pushing them to use an algorithm. Have you considered an algorithm?
I would welcome an algorithm. Just determines on whether or not the quips are funny.
Yeah, the is Clarkson being interesting algorithm.
Yeah. Oh, God. I do not want to be responsible for that algorithm. All right, next question. Oh, yes, right. This is a question from Ken Johnson, which is Fun with Microwaves 3 when? And the answer is May 7th, 2012. We made Fun with Microwaves 3 7 years ago.
Ba-doom-tsh.
Ha ha. I don't know that we have plans to do a fourth. I just wanted to answer that question because it was funny. Next. Oh.
I think Fun with Microwaves 4 might just be the rollout of 5G across North America.
Yes. Like, weird, my weather app isn't working, but I can download it really fast now.
Interesting, yeah. Right, it's a question from Drummy. Who are your top 3 most influential comedians?
I'm going to need a second to think about that one.
Well, when I was thinking about this, I realized that, like many men growing up in North America my age, I was heavily influenced by Mitch Hedberg, for one, who was...
I mean, you're still influenced by him, but you were then also.
Yeah,
That was a Mitch Hedberg reference.
Yes, it was.
For those keeping score at home, I'm sorry.
If you're not familiar with him, he did a lot of like wonderful kind of like absurdist stand-up comedy that was very surreal sometimes, and he died about probably 10 years ago, longer, 15 maybe.
I think one of his most famous bits that gets referenced a lot still online is the like seeing the out of order sign on an escalator, and it's like
that is just stairs.
Yeah, we're sorry. Escalator is temporarily stairs.
Yeah, sorry for the convenience.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of the rice is a really good food if you're hungry and want to eat 2,000 of something.
Like he was a lovely man, or he seemed like a lovely man.
Yeah.
Right. His comic style was just very gentle and strange. And on the complete opposite end of that, I also think I was probably heavily influenced by Bill Hicks, which I went back and listened to Bill Hicks a couple of years ago. Oh, it was not aged well at all. No, there's some deeply problematic elements everywhere in that. But, he was anti, like, authority in a way that resonated with me when I was a teenager.
Yeah, that totally
and that
makes
I
sense.
enjoyed hearing people like being like, hey, yeah, you know what? The Republicans are evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with that. Stick it to them, Bill Hicks. But yeah, also, I don't know. What was I going to say? The comedian, I suppose, I don't know if you call this a comedian, but he definitely wrote comedy, is Chris Onstad, who wrote Achewood.
Oh, right.
And if I can play with definitions a little bit, I would like to shout out Chris Onstad,
I'm about
who
to as
did
well. So.
some very influential work for me.
You were about to also shout out Chris Onstad?
No, but play with the concept
okay.
a bit here, because I'm going to go some strange directions. I want to go with Don Ferguson of the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Yeah, all right.
Who was definitely a huge influence on me there.
Yeah.
I want to say, I've forgotten the third one now. Local weatherman in Edmonton, Alberta. Wow, why am I spacing on my heroes once again? Bill Matheson.
Really, the weatherman.
Yeah, he was a performer. He was originally part of the Army Signal Corps in World War II. Came back to Edmonton and became a weatherman and a talk radio personality.
Really,
but he had this mixture of humor and intellectualism, which to me is, it's something I aspire to all the time, especially in an improvised capacity, which being a weather person and being a radio talk show person,
That's nice, because our Victoria, BC's standard resident weatherman / talk radio funny person stylizes himself as a massive buffoon. So that must have been a nice change.
And I did remember the third one, Dennis Leary. was the first comedian I could actually recognize by name and voice.
Right.
And I think I wore out a CD of No Cure for Cancer.
Wow.
Just going back on that again and again on a loop, which in today's media landscape probably doesn't hold up quite as well as I'd hope for its wokeness, but...
Yeah, I mean, Dennis Leary famously also quite heavily influenced by Bill Hicks.
Yeah. So for me, I actually, I know it says top 3. I thought of one because it's basically he's very influential to me specifically in a sort of a roundabout way, but also has more broad-ranging inspiration. And you probably aren't familiar with him. His name was Barry Took, and so he was a writer on a BBC radio show called Round the Horn that my mum used to play me tapes of. She described making her parents very annoyed. This is when people get annoyed at like the youth on their phones. Literally, they'd be at like Sunday afternoon lunch, because like Sunday lunch in England was a big thing, and so but Round the Horn only aired once, and if you missed it, you couldn't get it again because it was the radio. There was no recordings. So she'd be sitting there with her little battery-powered radio with the one earpiece in, at like guffawing at the table at Sunday lunch, listening to Round the Horn. So she played because the BBC later re-released tapes, and the show was written by Barry Took and Marty Feldman. Marty Feldman, the very odd-looking gentleman from Young Frankenstein. He's the guy who played. He's the man who played Igor in Young Frankenstein.
Wow.
Okay, right, yes.
Yeah. He was also in Silent Movie, the other Mel Brooks movie. Anyway, so Barry Took and Marty Feldman. Marty Feldman, by the way, who passed away quite young and had to be replaced on the writing staff of Round the Horn with 3 people.
Wow.
Yeah, Marty Feldman was a manic comic writer, but Barry Took was the other writer for this show. And listening to this like very silly wordplay on these radio comedies when I was quite young, I think influenced a lot about. I started to get my tape recorder and do my own stuff and everything. And like the cast was great. Kenneth Williams from the Carry On Pictures was on it. Kenneth Horn, that's why the show is called Around the Horn, was like the straight man that hosted it. They did just really, really funny stuff. They had some very influential sketches, particularly Julian and Sandy, which were they were like a homosexual couple in the 70s using the like Polari slang of London's gay scene and sort of making that into the mainstream and apparently ruining it. But it was a really, really interesting show. I was thrilled to discover that you can actually get them on Apple Books now. So there's only 4 seasons. You probably want to start with season 2. I got season 1, and none of the like notable recurring characters are there, and they haven't quite like hit their stride. But they do the thing that I love, where they include the BBC announcer, because it was BBC Radio. It was all done live, and the announcers, they'd be men in tuxedos, being like, "And coming up next now on BBC 2," and the announcer assigned to their show would get looped into their sketches. Usually playing like non-animate objects, and he'd be like, "Yes, I, Douglas Smith, play the shovel," and it was very funny. So that was important for me when I was quite young, listening to these tapes. But after Round the Horn ended, Barry Took went to the BBC and took on the role, a role I would love, of comedy advisor to the BBC, and was instrumental in assembling the troupe for the show that was almost called Baron von Took's Flying Circus.
Really?
Yeah, he looked at John Cleese and Graham Chapman, who were on At Last the 1948 show, and Eric Idle, Terry Jones, and Michael Palin, and Terry Gilliam on Do Not Adjust Your Set, and said, "You all should work together on a sketch show." And he put together Monty Python.
Huh.
Yeah.
Normal brain, I'm influenced by the Pythons.
Exactly.
Big brain, no, I want to be influenced by the man who made the Pythons.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Wow.
when I discovered that, I was like, Barry Took is responsible for a lot of stuff that heavily influences me comedically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also responsible for like I don't know, probably about 6% of our culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and all of Monty Python, the series, is on Netflix, and you should watch it because it's a trip. The original series is like, oh right, this is madcap. Oh yeah, this is bizarre.
What everyone remembers is all the re-recorded stuff, the live shows, the things that were meant to be captured
and
for
the
posterity.
the marquee sketches, right?
Right.
But all the interstitial stuff is wild.
The broadcast stuff was, again, because it was never meant to be seen again. It's all wild.
So there's that answer. Next question from I'm going to say Per Moberg. I don't know how to pronounce that name. What's the first thing you remember doing on the internet? Chat, visit a specific website, that kind of thing.
I remember going to an internet cafe when I was a teen and looking up a walkthrough for Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, which had just been ported to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Wow.
And the walkthrough I found for it was about 200 pages long.
Oh my god.
Because it was an Ultima game, and it was really long for no reason.
This is very similar to my first experience online, which was at my friend's house, and it was looking up a walkthrough for probably Final Fantasy. Probably Final Fantasy VII, I think, because we didn't have internet yet. But down the road, my friend did, and he had like ICQ, and I was like, "What?"
Right.
Like once I was at his house hanging out, which was just sitting there beside him while he talked to a bunch of other friends on ICQ, and I was like, "Huh, I hope my dad gets internet sometime." Yeah. Oh yeah. There's that noise. Yeah.
No, I finally get to pull the graybeard card
Oh,
here.
please do.
So the first time I saw the internet, I was 12 years old at a place called the Edmonton Advanced Research Park. And it was a presentation in a large boardroom, and they were showing off.
I love the park.
Showing off what the internet could be. The FTP sites, some chat, some email. It was mainly just a talk because there was no way of projecting pictures of the internet. It was just pictures on transparencies that were laid down.
Right.
And they said at the end, "Okay, we're going to show you something special here today. This is a brand new piece of software from the National Computer or the National NCSA." And they're calling it, not only NCSA, oh my God. Anyway, it was the one before Netscape.
Huh.
And I thought, that's cool. A year later, after I had gone home and purchased a thick book that was called the Internet Phone Book,
Oh wow.
which was literally a directory of known web pages and Usenet groups.
right, because there was no search engines.
Right.
And I couldn't get internet for a number of months until I
Remember
could
when
find
there was
an
like a
ISP.
bunch of different search engines? Like there was like Lycos and
Alta Vista.
Alta Vista.
Dogpile.
Yeah, and you had to use. Why did you have to use different ones? Was it that you could find different things on different search engines?
They had different algorithms.
Right.
There was no
so
way.
you could search on Lycos and not find a thing, and then be like, okay, well we'll check Alta Vista, and then go over there and be like, oh, here it is.
But this is
Oh
all
my god.
roundabout way of saying the first thing I did on the internet was download a web browser using an FTP client.
I mean that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Bootstrap.
Yeah. It was Mosaic at that time, yes.
Oh, nice. So there you go. We've been here for a minute. Next question. Paul's just getting the questions. There we go. Oh, yes. With Final Fantasy VII, this is a question from Tamsin, who says, with Final Fantasy VII being my favorite game, the upcoming remake is my most anticipated game of all time. If each of you could pick a game to get a similar big-budget, high-effort remake treatment, what would it be and why? And you both said you were keen to answer this one.
X-Wing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Are they working on that, kinda? Are they?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
But X-Wing.
Yep.
I just throw me in an X-Wing, an A-Wing, a Y-Wing, or a B-Wing,
Bwing.
and let me actually finally fight in the Battle of Endor.
Let you Arnhid right into a bridge.
Yeah.
Ian?
I'm actually very lucky because most of the games that I've been playing and enjoying this past while have been high budget remakes. We got Shenmue, we've got all the Yakuza games getting big budget remakes.
I saw someone tweet before E3. They were like, it was a clip from Lord of the Rings, from I think it was Return of the King, with Aragorn talking to the ghosts in the cave, right? And it was like, hey, did you like a video game once? Well, welcome to E3 this year, and it's Aragorn going, it has been remade. And it's just like, yep.
But in all seriousness, I would love to. So, one of my favorite game series was the Os Tatakai Oendan, or known as Elite Beat Agents in America.
Oh, right.
And they're all these games
yes.
with a beautiful manga-style sketch art to go along with the gameplay. And I would love to see on the Switch a rhythm-based game in the same style, but with 3D graphics from the new ArcSys systems for Guilty Gear, where they've managed to take 3D models and make them look exactly like hand-drawn animated things.
Good.
Neat.
And so, yeah, I think we have the technology. All we need is the licensing.
So if I'm going to be like massive, if I'm going to be very me, my answer would be Final Fantasy VII, because what I want is just a very, very nice HD remaster of the original game. I don't want a different game. I am excited to see whatever the remake eventually becomes, because I'm a big fan of the game. But luckily for me, the original game is still there. That's true of all games. It's like, well, not all games, but most games that aren't internet connected, you can still go and play them. So I'll just say Breath of Fire 3, because Breath of Fire 3 was sick. There you go.
Rad.
Yeah. Next. What is your favorite character that you have made for a sketch or show with LRR? From Abare Renji 3.
I'm going to take an end run around this and say Avenir from Dice Friends by Law and Order. And I'm not sure if that's in the spirit of the question, but it was definitely a character that I enjoyed playing and that I thought had a lot of depth that I was able to put in ad hoc instead of scripting out.
I infer that is within the spirit of this question. That was also my guess for what you would say.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Because Avenir was great.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed playing him because I initially had a concept of him as being kind of like very Blackadder Goes Forth, as being this person who had learned to navigate the Azorius Senate, which, if you're not familiar with Magic the Gathering's Ravnica setting, is an enormous bureaucracy that administrates a planet-sized city of billions of people. And the Azorius Senate is, very dysfunctional, and it's everyone's worst ideas of a bureaucracy. So Avenir was a low-level functionary in it, and basically, he just stamps something in an office every day, waiting for his chance to retire. And there was actually a line in Chernobyl, which was coming out around the same time, where an unnamed character who everyone knows is the director of the KGB, but nobody describes in that way or addresses by name, describes the KGB as a circle of accountability. And that's how I imagined. I was like, oh, that's a very scary way to say that.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of how I imagine the Senate works, where everyone is watching over your shoulder in case you screw up, because if you get fired, then maybe they can get a promotion. And that was something that Avenir overcame working with the other characters, because he started off being kind of wary of them and afraid of making mistakes. So that I enjoyed that aspect of him, learning to grow in trust.
On a completely different axis, for me, it's probably Dave Spokesman. Because he's so much fun to write. And again, this is me answering for me. He's so much fun to perform. He just I like messing with language, and I mean, you'll see this in a bunch of the sketches I wrote, like Poker After Dusk, where it's like just all these just strange words. I just like making nonsense, and Dave Spokesman is just this he's just this weird alien. It's almost like he's not a human. That's not canon, but it's almost like that he's trying to, trying to communicate, but it's all wrong. And so it's nice to be able to have him be horribly mispronouncing and confusing things in a way that's not bad.
It's like he learned English through watching only television commercials.
Yeah.
But somehow has perfect pronunciation. If I had to, I got a couple that came to mind. And while I do love the decadent man, I feel like he definitely represents a lot of who I am and a lot of what I actually believe comes through that character in a twisted way.
Yeah.
So rarely are you present and part of a physical creation of a character. So I have to say Bartleby was my favorite creation.
Oh yeah,
we actually got to work with Featherweight in an impromptu TTSF panel at a
Con Bravo, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I forgot because it sort of the snowball of progress over the years that whenever we need Bartleby to do something, we would get Alex to do it. But I had forgotten until quite recently that you were the original Bartleby performer.
Yeah, and then Alex got into it. It was good because Alex has a very good Bartleby voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're ever wondering why Bartleby doesn't have eyes, it's because Featherweight forgot them, said, "Oh no, I'll just put these on later," and I had to remind him, "No, you absolutely will not."
Well, because the panel was over.
Yep.
It's like, no, that was the period of creation. He is a complete being now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
The invocation is complete.
Yeah. I love Bartleby. Next up, what character that hasn't already been announced or confirmed would you like to see show up on Star Trek Picard?
Bartleby.
A question from Harold Price.
Avenir.
Well, they certainly haven't. Yeah, they have confirmed neither of those creatures, beings, people.
I guess I have to go with, like, perennial crowd favorite Garrick.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That would
Because
be amazing.
If they're just going to do, like, I assume at some point they kind of want to do the thing where Picard just runs around like it's the end of a Mass Effect game and high fives all his buddies, right? As they all like gather up and are like, "Yeah, let's do the thing." And I just want Garrick to be there for some reason.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no! I was just saying they never got to interact because they were in different series.
Yeah.
But they were. They would be so good together.
I want to see, now that you've said that, this has just reaffirmed my desire to see a series similar to Picard. Which I wanted. Hello, Siri. I was pitching this on Twitter years ago, before Picard was actually announced, that I wanted to see a new series on Deep Space Nine with I don't know what rank she would be now, but with
General Kira.
General Nerys, whatever, just like, because I don't know if you've seen recent pictures of Nana Visitor, but she looks terrific. And having her still be like just trying to hold down the fort over there, and like what happened after the events of the end of DS9 and everything.
Right.
And then
right.
bring Garrick back. Just
Nog's-
more Garrick.
Nog's just chief engineer at this point.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
But for Star Trek.
Yeah. What about O'Brien? I like O'Brien.
Because O'Brien, I think, canonically went on to become...
He started teaching at Starfleet
he
Academy?
started teaching at Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Have you... So that Lower Decks series that looks like Rick and Morty
Right.
is canon?
I guess
Question?
so.
Yes.
Probably.
until they sell all sorts-
Maybe
Also,
he'll be a voice in that. Who
apparently
knows?
written by the person behind Star Trek Season 8 to the Twitter
Yes.
Twitter account, which
Huh.
gives me hope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing I thought of when I read this question was Q.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, which I'll say right now is my answer.
Okay.
So let's discuss that then.
Yeah, but then I thought about it and I wasn't sure, because All Good Things was the bookend to Encounter at Farpoint. That was like Q's
Interest.
that was the arc there, and this is a different thing. This sort of picks up because Q wasn't in the movies,
No.
right? And so, does Q have a role or a purpose in this story that they're telling? Maybe having Q there doesn't actually make sense.
Right. Well, I mean, like, Q loves pride,
Yeah.
right? And if Picard has retired and surrendered all the pretense of being, like, Starfleet's field diplomat,
Yeah.
like, or fighting diplomat, right? Like, maybe Q finds him dull now.
Yeah. But maybe whatever he's going to do based on the trailer, maybe now Q's like, oh wait, what are you up to? What's going on what's in this thread?
Yeah.
Maybe he does show up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would be very surprised if Q doesn't show up in some way.
Honestly, you'd
They
be
are
surprised
kind of
if he
linked.
Does, but that's the same thing. I do agree that they are linked. Q's never really worked outside of working against Picard, and everything they've done with his character is really not even anything with his character. They've just explored his backstory and environment elsewise. So it's character to character. Picard and Q really are, as you say, linked. And if even if it's just him coming back and saying, I have no idea what is happening right now because of all the timeline mess-ups, but I know you can figure these things out, Mr. Picard.
The other character I'd be really shocked if we don't see again is Guinan.
Oh, wow.
Because, like, they're like the oldest friends,
Yeah.
right? They trust each other.
Did she
Right.
make it out of Generations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I think Guinan in Generations was just shown her origin, her meeting with Picard.
Okay.
No, they didn't even meet. She was just on the refugee ships that the Enterprise B saved. But yeah, I would just love to see like Picard and Guinan hanging out again, being like old buddies.
If there's going to be a
Yeah.
reveal, it's going to be Picard going to an old Star Wars style bar of Scumdillion. Oh, look. Well, I know the owner. And it's
This guy,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I want to know what happened to Dr. Crusher.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened there, because Picard's not... He's pretty alone on that vineyard.
Yep.
So, sorry, shippers.
I just want to know what Guinan's thing was where she encounters Q and is like,
yes.
Oh, yeah,
she's
right.
got like the psionic.
Yeah.
Maybe she knows Krav Maga.
Yeah, or something, right? Like,
Yeah. I don't know.
And Dorian Kung Fu.
I'm very hyped for Picard. I was reading an article about, like, here's everything forthcoming in this that we're making with the Star Trek brand, and I was like, good lord, this article just keeps going.
There's
so
lot
many
going.
things they're making.
I guess
excited.
Paramount has found its MCU,
gotta-
or remembered that it owned an MCU
Yeah.
the entire time.
Got to figure out how to watch this all in Canada. Was it Crave or something?
Crave.
Okay. No, then I can watch The Terror. No? How do you watch The Terror? I thought it was on
I
Crave.
bought it on iTunes.
Oh, okay. Just play it on loop as you're falling asleep.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Next question. LRR is a beacon of positivity in an often troubling world, is a statement. Thank you, Michael. Michael continues, what are some ways you recharge your emotional reservoirs? I sit very quietly and like play Magic Arena or watch long YouTube videos. I'm very lucky in that Kathleen and I have the kind of relationship where we are more than happy sitting in the same room as one another on our phones, and that's really just very, very pleasant. We just sit quietly and look at internet bullshit and not talk, because I spend all day working with my friends and then talking to people on the internet, and then at the end of the day, like days when when I'm doing like high brain stuff, like directing a Friday nights and trying to keep track of like getting all the shots in a row and everything, or doing like Loading Ready Live where like we shoot a Commodore Hustle and I edit it and then we do Loading Ready Live. At the end of one of those days, I am toast. I have no energy to speak to anyone. I'm just like, nope, sitting still now. Thanks. So that I just sit and watch stuff.
This is something recent that I've discovered, and it's been just so good for my mental health. I don't be creepy, work fairly close to Beacon Hill Park now. And I've discovered a bench next to a small waterfall where ducks like to congregate, and it's slightly shaded just enough at 1 p.m. when I take my lunch that I can walk out there, plug in my headphones with a nice audiobook, and sit and watch the ducks as the sounds of the waterfall just leak in through these tiny headphones.
Sounds nice.
It
you,
is-
You do like birds.
I do love birds. and it is heaven for an hour.
That sounds nice.
I go out of my house because my house is kind of one long room where everything happens, so I can't escape from anything in it.
It's nice to go outside.
Yeah, it is. And I will go to like a pub or a restaurant or a cafe and read a book and have a drink, whether it's a pint of beer or a coffee, and something light to eat, and just look out a window for a while. And that's nothing complex or even very unique, but it makes me happy to just not have to talk to anyone.
It makes a lot of sense that when we, because the premise of the question is that we're putting so much out there all the time, and we're communicating with people in chat or on Twitter, and we're doing all of this like high energy goofiness at work. It makes sense that all three of our answers can be distilled to sitting quietly and not talking to anybody.
Yeah, it's like, I'd be very surprised if any of us were like, oh yeah, in order to recharge, I have to go down to the club.
Yeah.
And, just tear it up.
Yeah, crush some shots, hit the rock climbing gym, Yeah, we just like to be quiet.
Karaoke.
Oh my God. Why would you say that? Yeah, there you go. Next up we have Cam. Question from Brian Apley. Do you GM any RPGs outside of LRR? And if so, what differences are there in your preparation process for a home game than for a streamed game?
The answer is yes. I haven't done a game outside of LRR since basically I've moved to Victoria. But I used to run or play in a game every week for about a decade. And the difference is when I run a game for LRR has a stream slot where we stream for 2.5 hours, and things have to happen. And those games are very... there is a lot less opportunity for players to do things in those games because they need to start and stop.
Yeah, we need to make a satisfactory episode of television.
Yes,
as opposed to, I don't know, what do you want to do?
Exactly. And my home games are that.
Yeah.
Right, where I'm just like, okay, so you've all made these characters. Here's the situation. What do you want to do? And you just spend 4 or 5 hours with your friends examining how these characters behave in some very strange situations sometimes, and then you just make stuff up, and either it works or it doesn't. But people are generally fairly entertained by it. But with an audience, you have to like move and hit certain beats at a certain rate.
And I promise you that's true of, I don't know because we haven't spoken, but I promise you that's true of like any other internet created D&D or tabletop RPG show, like Ack Inc. or Critical Role or just any the Adventure Zone. I'm
confident
that they are, again, it's not like anything could still happen. Like, I don't know if you watched Trouble in Paradise this past week, but they were like, what if I did this? And Dale's like, yeah, I guess that's happening this episode. Okay. And had to like figure a thing out.
Right.
Who knows what could happen, but it's definitely a lot. There's a lot more prep ahead of time.
Way more prep.
And, yes, one more question from Philip Bradbury. Now that the YouTube membership system is introducing a bunch more people to the paying LRR money community and taking into account the relative populations of Twitch and Patreon, what is your third favorite sandwich shape?
Open-faced.
Burrito.
Uncut, just normal sandwich. Just like a normal...
That's your third.
Third favorite, yeah. First is large triangles, like that you get in like
Crust off?
I'm crust ambivalent.
Okay.
Like you get in a train station package,
Yeah,
right? Where it's just like the right angle and
it's been cut on the bias.
Yeah, like they're everywhere in Japan. I know them more from like Marks and Spencer's in England, because we went to England a lot when I was a kid because of family there. And again, train stations is just like, well, we're going to be on a train for 4 hours, get some sandwiches from Marks and Spencer's, and then it's at train stations in Japan as well. And then probably second is smaller triangles.
The club sandwich kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at
The quartered.
yeah, like at high tea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, those are no good either.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, maybe full sandwich is even further down the list. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
What's your number one
Shit talk
sandwich
from
shape?
the.
I'm straight number 1 burrito. Number 2 standard 2 breads together.
The two breads, it's depending on the filling, it's wide. It's so as a beard haver, that surprises me because if the width of the bread means that it's very easy for stuff to get, let's say peanut butter and jam, easy for stuff to get on your face.
Oh, and it definitely gets stuck up in there. And I think actually I need to reevaluate the whole cutting of my sandwiches at this point.
Okay.
You may have actually just changed a bit of my life, Graham.
Oh, there we are. Maybe you can cut it into a spiral and then like feed it in.
Ooh. Yeah. Just like spiralize it.
Yeah.
My number 1 is like a bunwich on like a really crusty roll. Because it's kind of linear, right? And that's you can take a bite out of it and still dip it in your soup or whatever.
Yeah, wow. Wait, normal ass sandwich is actually way further down than third on my list. I've messed this up. You've given us the most contentious question of the night. Thank you, Mr. Flip. Yeah, so there you go. That was askLR for August. Thank you for joining us for this. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of them, but we are but men. And keep an eye out, for those of you who are YouTube members, keep an eye out on the community tab for your opportunity to ask questions for the September episode with whomever is going to be on that episode. So, until next time, thanks for listening. And a reminder, of course, that this is brought to you directly by you, by your support here on YouTube as a YouTube member, or by Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Or, I mean, even subscribing on Twitch, because, again, all the stuff that comes in helps us do all the things that go out. So, thank you all for being here, and we'll talk to you next time on askLR.